Good afternoon. It is Saturday, October 18th, 2025. We have newly designated Invest 98L out here in the western main development region of the Atlantic, as this is moving generally off towards the west at around 15 to 20 miles per hour, and it is still likely to threaten the southern Windward Islands to bring some heavy rainfall, strong winds, and the potential for coastal impacts. So everybody living in the southern Windward Islands here needs to be watching this system very closely, as some slow development of the system remains a distinct possibility. Here's a closer zoomed in view on Invest 98L this evening as the sun is beginning to set over the system, and as we can see clearly here, the surface low is not very well defined by any means. Even so, it might look like that, and that is because our system is moving very, very quickly. In fact, moving at almost 25 to almost 30 miles per hour. So this is not moving slow at all, and it is moving so fast that the system is not able to possess a closed surface low. In other words, for a closed surface low to develop or for a tropical depression to become better organized, we want westerly flow to develop to the south of the circulation here, or whatever circulation there actually is at this point. And so instead of an open wave pocket here where we have winds that do this in a sense, right? That's what we generally define as a tropical wave. When we get a closed surface low, we define that as getting a closed low where we have westerly winds here on the southern side and winds curving back around from the south and then doing that cycle all over again. And at the moment, we are not seeing a closed surface low. Otherwise, we would have more organized deep convection, a more deeper burst of convection that is more persistent. And of course, I'm sure Recon would be out on this right now and would probably give us an idea that, oh, there is a closed circulation. But at the moment right now, this is still open out to the south right now, with very strong near tropical storm force winds on the northern side. That is around 35 to even 40 miles per hour. Now, when we take a look here at the latest 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center in Miami, Florida, they're giving this a low 30% chance of tropical development once this gets into the Windward Islands over the next couple of days, and then approaches the central and eastern Caribbean in the next 3 to 6 days here as it moves very quickly off towards the west up to about 25 miles per hour. So now the big question mark in today's update is whether or not will this consolidate into something significant such as a tropical storm or a hurricane in the next 7 to 10 days. And with that, let's take a look here at the latest 850 millibar geopotential height cyclonic relative vorticity forecast from the European model, and then we'll be looking at our GFS model, the American model, here in just a little bit. So as we go over the next, say, 12 hours or so, we can see where the tropical wave actually is here. There is a lot of orange, indicating that there is some cyclonic spin with this, and that's not a surprise given what we saw on the visible satellite imagery, indicating a fairly well-defined area of spin in the low and mid levels of the atmosphere, but not barreling down to the surface just yet at the very moment. And that's because it is moving pretty darn quickly, up to 25 miles an hour. And systems like to be slow when they actually develop. And in this case, it's not behaving like that. It's just moving too fast for where it can consolidate into anything meaningful. Otherwise, it would do some attempt at consolidating a little more quicker. But there's also a little bit of vertical wind shear, which we'll get here in just a little bit. So now this does approach the Windward Islands in the next, say, 12 to 18 hours. So by tomorrow early afternoon, you're going to see the wave pocket here moving over the islands. We are not expecting any development of a tropical depression at this given time. I want to make it clear right now, there's only a 30% chance, but regardless of tropical development, there will be some very heavy rainfall that could lead to some landslides and some debris flows on any of the shallow land areas where there's not much vegetation. We could also see some rough surf, especially on the northern side where we have enhanced trade winds coming in out of the easterly direction. So that is something to take into consideration with this system, regardless of if it does or doesn't develop into anything meaningful. All right, and then this remains a broad open wave trough over the next 3 days. It's not in much hurry of development at all, as you can see here. It does not consolidate. We're not seeing westerly winds here on the southern side of the system. We're not even seeing a closed contour in the height field, which would otherwise indicate we have a closed surface low. And instead, this is an open wave, meaning that it will remain disorganized with showers and thunderstorms, but there will be a pocket of inclement weather associated with it. Now, over the next 5 days here, by the middle of next week, the wave could close off a little bit more, as we can see here. You can see a height contour here highlighted just to the southeast of Jamaica, a indication that the wave is more better defined. However, it is more broad than it's tight. Broader systems don't spin up very quickly as tighter ones would typically do because of the conservation of angular momentum. It's a whole scientific word, basically explaining that if you put all of your hands and feet, if you're spinning on a rolling type chair and you spin yourself initially with your arms out, you're going to spin slowly. But if you pucker in, you're going to spin a lot faster. Same principle here that we're dealing with, but only with weather. So whether or not does this close off, the European model is not very enthused at all over the next 7 days. In fact, it remains very poorly defined here. However, it is very broad in nature, which means there's a nice good moist pocket here. And of course, with that, we can get little spinners within this that kind of rotate one around one another, and that could potentially kickstart some cyclogenesis in the deep tropics there. But it is slow to occur here. But over the next 10 days, the system really struggles on the European model. But that's only one model solution. If we look at the prior model run from yesterday, you can see it was even lesser defined than the run, well, not as defined in its previous run as the run before that, but it is still defined on this. So there is still a little bit of a signal from the European deterministic model that some development of this wave is certainly a possibility. So now let's take a look at the GFS model, the American model, and we are getting our new run in right now. So this is newly coming in. So we won't be able to show you the next 10 days, but this is where it is at on this run. So it makes its crossing over the Windward Islands. Again, it remains poorly defined here. So we're not expecting a tropical depression of any sorts in the next 30 hours or so. But as this moves into the Caribbean, though, or more in the central Caribbean, you can see there's more red colors here indicating a more tighter area of spin. The GFS seems to be more convective biased in that nature, so this is probably a little too aggressive given the fact that most of our ensembles I'm about to show you do not really illustrate much development in this part of the Caribbean just yet by early next week. However, though, if we look at the previous run, though, it was less defined, so it's going to be interesting how this finishes up. If it actually gets a lot deeper, if it moves further west, it looks like it might move further west here, but also a stronger system here might have a tendency to turn north sooner as well. So a stronger system here may not always be good news. Well, it's not good news anyways, but if it's weaker here until it gets over here, then it might make a jump over the northern Bahamas later on, versus it basically turning north a lot sooner. And that's what the GFS model here shows in its 12Z forecast. You can see how it really develops in a hurry and hits Hispaniola in under 7 days. And again, that's 150 hours out here, and it really just drifts. This is a really big problem. When a storm moves this slow, it can dump a lot of rainfall as well as bring a lot of wind. So something also a danger part of this system is it's drifting. It really moves from going really fast to really slowing down dramatically. And that's because there's really not a whole lot of upper level steering to yank this northward in a hurry or to yank it further west or eastward. And we can see this in the 500 millibar height field here. There's really nothing to usher this northward. We got a ridge here that's very weak indeed, and our system's broad, which would resist otherwise weaker steering currents. And we got a bit of a trough right over here. You can see it here, and then another little bit of a ridge over here as well. So this is a really bad spot for the system to be in, to where it can just kind of hang out here for a while before it moves northward eventually, whenever that would be. And that would hopefully be when this trough gets closer here. It will help to yank this out to sea in time. But if it doesn't, if this trough gets further south, then this could pinwheel briefly before making a turn out to sea, making it come a little closer to the United States. That model, there's no scenario of that right now, which is great news. But the bad news is that if this moves into Bermuda, this would be a very, very powerful system by all means. This would be certainly a strong tropical storm and a broadening one as well. The icon model is not much different than any other model that we have looked at so far in this video. Is that, again, the tropical wave approaches St. Lucia as well as Barbados, as well as Dominica and Martinique eventually. That's what the icon model indicates, but also, again, takes a little while for it to consolidate, but it does try to do so somewhere in this area. And this is kind of up to where is it going to be at this point, right? If this ends up further west, if it ends up right over here, it's kind of like an Ian situation. You know, we thought, oh, Ian's going to be a little further north, maybe perhaps north of Jamaica, you know, in about 5 days. Instead, it ended up much further to the southwest of Jamaica, right? So that's kind of where we are at this point, is exactly where and when this consolidates, all right? If it consolidates much further west, again, it has that opportunity to get much closer to the United States, such as Florida into the northern Bahamas. But if this consolidates much sooner, like the GFS continues to indicate, it goes in between it goes in between Puerto Rico and the eastern portion there of the Dominican Republic. Then it goes out to sea and not bothers anybody other than any residents that are down here in the deep tropics, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where we stand at this point when it comes to a forecast like this. Anytime you deal with a system that stalls or just doesn't move very fast because of weak steering currents, a lot of complications are involved here, is whether or not when and where it consolidates, when and where is it going to move to. We just don't know the answer, and I wish I had it in today's update. Now, looking at the Canadian model version of this, it's been consistently showing this stronger wave here. Not really a tropical depression at this time because, again, we have winds that are loosely out of the east, but much weaker here down to the south of the wave pocket, but much stronger winds here. So this would not be a tropical depression either on the Canadian model versus prior model runs. It had it a lot stronger, and we can see recent corrections to a weaker system now. And has latched on to the fact that the system's not going to really be that strong, or it's not going to be much stronger than it is now once it gets to the Windward Islands in the next 30 hours. But however, once it gets past this point, though, will it consolidate? How quick will it consolidate? The Canadian has had this solution to where it consolidates somewhere in here, all right where I have this box, and it continues to move pretty much due west for a longer period of time, missing Jamaica actually not on this run. I'm seeing this for the first time. See, this moves right over Jamaica. That's not good. Not good at all. Versus prior model runs had it further south, and even the run before that had it further south. So we've had this trend in recent runs in the last day or so where we have had trends going north, and now it shows it hitting Puerto Rico, or not Puerto Rico. Why do I keep on saying Puerto Rico or Bermuda when I'm talking about something else? Jamaica here. Okay. So if you're on Jamaica, this is in 138 hours out. So this is not fantasy land anymore. This is not. And so again, models are handling this very differently. The Euro is down here. The GFS is way over here. The icon is way over here. We don't know. We don't know right now. And so going forward out to day 7, it falls apart and then tries to consolidate over Honduras and Nicaragua, and then tries to launch northward towards Florida. I mean, that's a very different solution. So we are going from solutions like this on the Canadian model to solutions that have the Euro doing this and kind of looping back, and the GFS going like that. The icon, just very different outcomes here. In fact, I don't think I showed you the whole solution here on the European model. Yeah, so the European model here, to finish that up, shows it over Jamaica, but a lot later, 324 hours out instead of, if we go back and look at the Canadian, it had it over Jamaica way sooner in 132 hours. So yeah, there's a big timing difference here, but both scenarios here from the Euro and the Canadian have an impact over Jamaica before it goes out to sea in about, hypothetically in about 2.5 weeks, which we don't even know if that's even going to happen yet in the first place. But just to let you know, the European model still insists that development with this wave in mid to late October seems appreciable at this time. So, man, that was a lot in terms of the modeling world. Let's talk about how much rainfall you're going to see with this system. And this is very important for our Windward Island friends here. Just because, I might not get as much wind doesn't mean you won't get a lot of rain either. We actually let me make my mouse a little smaller here. So you can see in Dominica here, and actually not Dominica, Guadeloupe, that is, excuse me, sorry. Got to get to know my islands here a little bit better. I already know them. Don't worry, folks. But yeah, you can see parts of Guadeloupe here up to 1.5 inches, but you get the wind leeward or the rain shadow effect, where some parts of the island here, you only get 1/10 of an inch. Same reasoning for our other islands here. A lot more rain on the western slopes of the mountain ranges here of the islands, lesser on the leeward side. So that's the downwind side where the wind comes up and over and it sinks and warms and dries. You're not going to get a whole lot there. And on some of these other islands, over the course of the next 2 to 3 days, you're looking at about 1 to 2 inches of rainfall, which is enough to cause some flooding. But of course, in orographic favored areas, you could see up to 4 inches of rain with this passing of the tropical wave. Now that we talked about where this is going, how strong it could be on each individual deterministic model, let's talk about those ensembles, because the European model has trended back to a stronger system with most of the members here now showing up, versus a couple of days ago, they were showing that, this might die off a little faster or a little sooner, but not this go around. And so they insist now that the system is going to do this, all right, and it's just going to meander over here for a while and then probably do a loop and then come down here, hang around, and then go back. Man, that is as disgusting, as uncertain of a forecast you can probably think of in a long time. Actually, this is more uncertain than any other storm that we have tracked so far this hurricane season, all right? So just keep that in mind. This could literally go north here. It can go far west and then north here, or it can go here, or we just don't know when that turned to the north, or even if it will happen at all. We just don't know the answer on that right now. But some of the models do insist that this does become a tropical depression or a tropical storm at the very most. Maybe a low-grade hurricane. There's still a distinct possibility on that, especially from our GEFS ensemble still insisting that we have a strong tropical storm or a low-grade hurricane in about 5 to 10 days. Looking at the Google DeepMind AI models, showing that same scenario. Some of them are pretty aggressive here, but most of them are showing strong tropical storm with winds about 50 to 70 miles an hour or so in the course of the next 7 to 10 days. Looking at the Google DeepMind generational AI model, again, this is an artificial intelligence ensemble forecast, still insisting again, this central portion around Jamaica could still see a area of disturbed weather where it does become a tropical depression or storm, and then becomes a stronger tropical storm once it gets into the northwestern Caribbean, if it does at all. That's a thing that we will be watching very closely, and I'm hoping in a few days here we'll get a better idea on where this is going to go and who is going to be at play here of getting impacts, all right? But until now, this is like a spider web where there's just no predictability beyond 5 or 7 days. Now, the only other thing that I can think of that would get this system started much quicker is sea surface temperatures that are not only above average, but they are very warm for this time of the year. And we can see that here from the University of Miami, Florida. We can see this patch of orange here indicating very warm waters of around the mid to upper 80 echelon range. We have some darker orange and reds here indicating water temperatures are in the upper 80s around Jamaica as well as the Cayman Islands. So if anything, sea surface temperatures here are quite favorable for this system to develop within. The only question mark here is whether or not will something actually spin up. And I don't have time to get into this today, but the vertical wind shear is in a question mark phase at this time. There will be some vertical wind shear at the beginning when this gets into the Caribbean, where we have westerly vertical wind shear of around 20 to 30 knots. And with the system not only moving fast into this region, it is going to be very tilted with its vortex or any spin there is with height. It's going to be tilted off towards the east. And so it will take time for that vortex to stack, vertically stacking, we call it, to where we can facilitate deeper convection, to where we can facilitate lower height, lower pressures, and to get TC genesis going. Right now, there's a question mark in that because of the vertical wind shear that the system could be facing. And it doesn't take a whole lot when a system is not really strong at this point. And that's the point that I'm trying to make here with these warm temperatures. Even so you have very warm waters doesn't mean we will have a Cat 5 hurricane. Other factors need to come together for a very intense hurricane to develop. Sea surface temperature anomalies here, we are seeing well above average like I just talked about, well above average, right around about 1 to 2 degrees above normal for this time of the year. And upper ocean heat content, a measure of how much heat there is stored below the ocean. There is a lot of heat out there in the deep tropical Caribbean, especially around Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. That is why I am a little concerned about this. If the vertical wind shear somewhere in this area, I'm circling this in black, okay, this would be the more optimal area for this system to develop within, where there's lighter vertical wind shear. There's not a whole lot of westerly, northerly shear to deal with here, where we have a lot more better moisture content in the atmosphere. This would be the area that I'm more concerned about, where we do get better development with 98L once it approaches this circle. Now, the heat content anomalies are definitely off the charts, especially to the southwest of Jamaica here. This purple area indicates well above average upper ocean heat content. Pretty much the entire Caribbean is running well above where it should be for this time of the year. So again, sea surface temperatures are not the issue here at preventing this from developing. It is going to be atmospheric, environmental conditions that will prevent this from initially developing. But anyways, if you haven't been here before and you did find today's tropical weather outlook and discussion very helpful, detailed, informative, and life-saving, please don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, folks. It really helps out a lot. Hit that bell notification icon if you haven't already to get up-to-date information here on the tropics on a daily basis. If necessary, hit that like button and share this video with your family and friends on social media. As always, I cannot guarantee that I will have a video out every day on this tropical wave. As long as it remains a threat and as long as models continue to insist on tropical development, I will have a video out at least every other day. But if something changes more significantly where we do need to make another video, I will have one out tomorrow, possibly in the afternoon, right around 3 to 5 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. You don't want to miss that if I do. But again, it will depend on the latest evolution on this system, if it deserves another video update or not. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll be back with you more possibly tomorrow, but if not, for sure on Monday, on the 20th of October.